Pramena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. We continue reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter 4. When Abhay arrived, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was already speaking. He sat with his back erect, a shawl around his shoulders, not speaking like a professional lecturer giving a scheduled performance, but addressing a small gathering in his room. At last, Abhay was in his presence again. Abhay marveled to see and hear him, this unique soul possessed of Krishna Katha, speaking uninterruptedly about Krishna in his deep, low voice, in ecstasy and deep knowledge. Abhay sat and heard with rapt attention. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had been speaking regularly about Sambandha, Abhidaya, and Prayojana. Sambandha is the stage of devotional service in which awareness of God is awakened. Avidya is rendering loving service to the Lord, and Prayojana is the ultimate goal, pure love of God. He stressed that his explanations were in exact recapitulation of what had originally been spoken by Krishna and passed down through disciplic succession. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's particular utterance, mostly Bengali but sometimes English, with frequent quoting of Sanskrit from the Shastras, with erudition. It is Krishna, said Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who is the only super lord over the entire universe and beyond it, of Vaikuntha, the transcendental region. As such, no one can raise any obstacle against his enjoyment. An hour went by, 2 hours. The already small gathering in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's room gradually thinned. A few sannyasis left, excusing themselves to tend to duties connected with the parikrama camp. Only a few intimate leaders remained. Abhay was the only outsider. Of course, he was a devotee, not an outsider, but in the sense that he was not a sannyasi, was not handling any duties, was not even initiated, and was not traveling with the parikrama, but had joined only for a day. In that sense, he was an outsider. The philosophy Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was speaking, however, was democratically open to whoever would give an ardent hearing, and that Abhay was doing. He was listening with wonder. Sometimes he would not even understand something, but he would go on listening intently, submissively, his intelligence drinking in the words. He felt Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati revealing to him the direct vision of the spiritual world, just as a person reveals something by opening a door or pushing aside a curtain. He was revealing the reality, and this reality was loving service to the lotus feet of Radha Krishna, the supremely worshipable personality of Godhead. How masterfully he spoke, and with utter conviction and boldness. It was with such awe that Abhay listened with fastened attention. Of course, all Vaishnavas accepted Krishna as their worshipable Lord, but how conclusively and with what sound logic was the faith of the Vaishnavas established by this great teacher? After several hours, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati stopped speaking. Abhay felt prepared to go on listening without cessation, and yet he had no puzzling doubts or queries to place forward. He wanted only to hear more. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made his exit, Abhay bowed, offering his obeisances, and then left the intimate circle of sannyasis as their row of tents and went to the outer circle of tents. His mind surcharged with the words of his spiritual master. Now their relationship seemed more tangible. He still treasured his original impression of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, the saintly person who had spoken to him on the rooftop in Calcutta. But tonight, that single impression that had sustained him for years in Allahabad had been enriched and filled with new life. His spiritual master and the impression of his words were as much a reality as the stars in the sky and the moon over Vrindavan. That impression of hearing from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was filling him with its reality, and all other reality was forming itself around the absolute reality of Srila Gurudev, just as all the planets circle around the sun. The next morning, Abhay was up with the others more than an hour before dawn, bathed and chanting mantras in congregation. Later in the morning, the tall, stately figure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, dressed in plain saffron, got into the back seat of a car and rode away from the camp, thoughtful and grave. He looked back and waved, accepting the loving farewell gestures of his followers. Abhay stood amongst them. A little more than a month later, Abhay was again anticipating an imminent meeting with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, this time at Allahabad. Abhay had only recently returned from Vrindavan to his work at Prayag Pharmacy when the devotees at the Allahabad Gaudiya Math informed him of the good news. They had secured land and funds for constructing a building, the Sri Rupa Gaudiya Matha, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would be coming on November 21st to preside over the ceremony for the laying of the cornerstone. Sir William Malcolm Haley, Governor of the United Provinces, would be the respected guest and in a grand ceremony would lay the foundation stone in the presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Whenever learned Whenever learned that there would also be an initiation ceremony, he asked if he could be initiated. Atulananda, the Matha's president, assured Abhay that he would introduce him to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. At home, Abhay discussed his initiation plans with his wife. She had no objection, but she did not want to take initiation herself. They were already worshipping the deity at home and offering their food to the deity. They believed in God and were living peacefully. But for Abhay, that was not enough. Although he would not force his wife, he knew that he must be initiated by a pure devotee. Avoiding sinful life, living piously, these things were necessary and good, but in themselves they did not constitute spiritual life and could not satisfy the earning of the soul. Life's ultimate goal and the absolute necessity of the self was love of Krishna. That love of Krishna his father had already inculcated within him, and now he had to take the next step. His father would have been pleased to see him do it. We'll stop here. We read about Srila Prabhupada's meeting with his Guru Maharaj for the second time, and he's planning for initiation. Now we can go for japa. Srila Prabhupada Pranati.